If you've already gone through my $100,000 branding and design crash course, you may still have some specific questions. And when I went through this course with a few hundred founders, they had about a handful of questions that I went through in a little more detail than normal. And so I'm about to go through those questions and answers here. All right, jumping in. So quick context, these were a number of questions that founders had after my presentation. And so I'm going to be addressing each one of their questions. It's about 14 or so of them, and then giving them specific answers and context. And hopefully some of them apply to you. All right, so the first one. If your vision or mission is much bigger than what you're building today, should you tailor your content and brand around the bigger mission or more of what you're building today? So more long-term versus short-term. So let's take it back to positioning your brand in the basic level. So first is these are some questions that you should be able to answer and that essentially customers are going to ask as well. So what do you do? And what's your answer to that? How do you solve my problem? That's what every customer is asking. And then how are you better than the alternatives? So that is the fundamental questions that you need to be able to answer. And the illustration I have here is you have this North Star of what you're trying to go to, and it should be the same. And so if you're too focused on the now, you're going to miss out on a lot of the big picture problems that you should be focused on. So then to illustrate this further, here is a quote from Elon Musk as we look at Tesla. The point of all this was and remains accelerating the advent of sustainable energy so that we can imagine far into the future and life is still good. And so how that they do that is they started with this Roadster to show that you can have electric vehicles. And I'm totally simplifying this, but that electric vehicles can become cool. And I mean, before Roadsters, there was no market for them. And so he wanted to create a market for that. And so you went from the Roadster, which was reserved for a few, more on the wealthy side. And then you keep going down these price points. So the Model S, ballpark around 100,000, Model X, a little less, Model 3, Model Y, and then even going into semi-trucks, looking at how our whole world revolves around transportation, and then finally the Cybertruck. Next, what are some B2B, business to business examples of great brands? Here's just a couple. There's a lot. So the first one is Salesforce. Then we have HubSpot, AngelList, Asana, and Ramp. And the reason I've chosen these, Salesforce is known as essentially the gold standard when it comes to enterprise SaaS. HubSpot is definitely up there in terms of functionality, and AngelList, the design is incredible. The function is also great. Asana, this is what we use for project management. Really, really strong. The design is great. The product is good. The entire experience from both sides of the login, so on the marketing side as well as the product, all feel very cohesive. And then same with Ramp, even down to their button styles are the same from both sides of the login. And so these are great examples to look at how they do copywriting and structuring their content, as well as how they do design, whether it's on blog, hero images, or down to their social posts. These are examples I would look to, definitely. Next, first, thanks for asking, what's the average price for a startup to work with your company on branding? So I'm a partner at a company called Lunar, and we work with typical Series A-ish companies for strategy and identity. And so I'll dive into a couple options here. So first is Lunar. So again, Lunar, more on the brand strategy side, go in depth on copywriting, getting your whole team with that kind of Series A part aligned. We work on usually about 12-week cycles. The price range can go all the way from $90K down to $35K. We have our websites that go from a single landing page, $10K, all the way up to as crazy as it can possibly be. Next is logo launch. This came out of teaching a lot, where we had a lot of people who liked what we had to say and how we worked, but couldn't afford that price and really honestly didn't need to go in that depth with strategy. So kept asking for things under 10K. We didn't have a good answer, so we created logo launch. And this is building your strong visual foundation. And that's around starting at 7K. And then finally is every bit of content we have here. In my last decade plus of learning branding, I've wanted to have more resources that just made it easier for me to understand and to take action. And there hasn't been that. So I'm working on building that resource right now with content just like this. Can you help us connect how finding product market fit with marketing and communication while developing and working on branding? Can you help us connect how finding product market fit with marketing communication while developing and working on branding. So the way that I typically think is product market fit is making a connection so great by solving someone's pressing problem that everything is on fire because it's working so well on your side, on the business side. And you're struggling to get bug fixes or respond to support tickets because really it's good that there's so much demand for your product. And so maybe this question, if I understand it correctly, was that you have created such a good solution that there's an extreme amount of demand for that. So when you're creating content, there is you still kind of back to our original, I think it was the original question, is you're thinking so far in the future that you can communicate to somebody so clearly. And so brand messaging is connection, and then marketing is going towards somebody. Usually brand messaging is where they come to you. And so it's the blend of that. And the reason I have this journey map up here is this is the best way I've been able to find to be able to have unlimited amount of content ideas. So this is a journey map. So let's say for mapping out the hotel guest journey, I just found this online, it's not mine. You start by how are they looking for a trip, and then they go into what tools do they use for researching, what keywords are they using there, and then if they're looking at options, what are the different types of options that they're looking at, and then what selections are they making once they actually travel there, what accommodations help when they get there, when they arrive, what questions they have when they walk up the elevator or go to the elevator and then walk to their room, what's the experience when they open the door for the first time, what should they have? And so you have so many different touch points that you can talk about. And so if you're trying to target people who are traveling, you have a lot of different bits of content to be able to pull from here. Next, are there any strong thoughts on having an icon or not? And this is typically with a logo. So what I shared is that think of Airbnb. Airbnb has a bellow, so it's that kind of A-shaped icon. They can use that by itself, but some companies don't have that. But my thoughts on this are that you should, and but it's not always necessary. So here is one company that we did the brand and the website for. We even came up with the name. So it's a private jet company. And you can see on the top left, we have the favicon, which is under 40 pixels. And this is probably the guaranteed place for in every single situation. If you have some sort of icon, it should be used in this place. But as you see, the rest of it is that we have the word mark. So the full Axio name there for the website logo, as well as the app icon. And then even on cargo, or excuse me, boxes, we have it in other places there. Any thoughts on how much fonts matter inside the product versus landing pages? Font choice is incredibly important. It gives a lot more character than you think. So here's a great example for Ramp, is that they use the same font for everything from marketing to product. Sometimes it's harder to do. I would recommend going with something safe if you do not have an agency working with it or working with you on it, because the way that your font feels within a product or a SaaS platform could feel really too big or clunky. Maybe it's too small and narrow. Maybe it's too lightweight, and so you wouldn't hit accessibility markers. So something like Enter is a really great, safe choice for product. But then you might be able to go a little bigger or bolder or more creative on your landing page, but in combination with your actual product. All right, so this question was in response to a slide where I showed the button styles that you use for marketing sites, I believe. I don't remember perfectly, so it might have been in the general context of when I was showing how to design buttons, with primary being filled, outline being the secondary, and then there's other additional styles here. So the question is, should the buttons for consumers plays not be based on what drives response? This is more high level on button design. So if you look at marketing, product buttons are typically large, about 48 pixels high, and medium around 40 pixels high. The primary call to action should be clear and consistent through the entire page. So here you have that primaries, that filled. If you squint your eyes, the first thing you should see, minus the red, is that primary filled button. Next is make it stupid easy for someone to give you money. So here is, if you go on any website we design, the primary action that we want you to take is always going to be in the same style. So you subconsciously see the same words, whether it's get started, get a demo, sign up, is always going to be in one style and the same words, so that you know what we want you to do on the single page, where there might be other things like learn more, visit our blog, contact us, something like that, and maybe the secondary styles here. And then what about product? Very similarly, you should be able to guide someone through your entire product with the button actions with primary buttons, similar to the marketing site where I have one style kind of directing you on the happy path. Per page, there should be the most important action you want someone to take with that same filled style. And then you have supporting buttons with the secondary, tertiary, and link buttons. And keep the text length as short as possible. Sometimes you try to fill in too many words. Some platforms are a little challenging there, but hopefully this one helps. So you have one icon for the left in general. So here I have the visual. These are placeholder buttons that I have in my design system. But you should have something, whether it's like a plus for an ad or something similar like that. There are cases though where you could have a drop down button on the right. So maybe it's filter. Maybe it's like a filter button on the left, and you have a chevron, so an arrow pointing down that give you options. So anyway, there's technicalities here. And then all buttons should follow the same pattern, which would be some sort of default, hover, pressed, focused, and disabled. And I have that scooch over here. So there's a filled, something. Sometimes you go reverse. So I actually did reverse for this design system. But if you start something like this middle, think about if I'm hovering over my finger, it's going to get darker because there's a shadow. And so you want to start where it's default, and then hover is slightly darker, and then press would be even darker because you're like getting that shadow there. I hear you on one color. So quick context on this is I showed the best practice when you're starting off is to focus in on one color, is that people will strongly associate your entire identity and brand with a color. So you think of Target, probably going to tell me that it's red. If you think of Chase Bank, you're probably going to tell me it's blue. And they've done that intentionally, that everything follows the same color. So that's the context for this question. I hear you on one color, but my industry is quite design heavy. Everyone has a light dark themes, and we're using orange or off-white, dark gray, rotating them for light and dark themes. What issues might we be facing here, or can we work well in your view? We have a branding studio, Lunar, as we follow like the same colors. Most branding studios are black and white and some sort of accent color. So super common, something we've actually talked about how to stand out more. Because this is the whole point, is when you are stacked up against all your competitors, you need to stand out. And so this olive oil brand, Grazza, has done a really good job standing out. Where if you look at all the options of water or drinks are here now on the right side, it's olive oil. Theirs looks different because it doesn't look old fashioned, that they have this squeeze bottle that, might be more like a sriracha type style. But it just looks different. The bottle itself is different. The colors are different. And then, so this difference in design has helped to grow sales. So that being said, is whatever you're doing, stack up against your competitors, see how your target audience will compare you to others, and you want to be seen as different. If we picked a name that is a bit more difficult to pronounce, at which point of our startup journey should we think of picking a different name? This is so important to get your name right. And I'll just go to the next slide so I can show you, is the TLDR just ASAP. The image that I have here is one of the exercises we had for our clients is how do we do naming? So first, we start with different themes. So let's say if it was like a transportation company, something like an Uber, is that I would want to understand how are you different from everybody else? Maybe you go on speed, or maybe your competitors, it's very, there's not a lot of trust. And that could be that there's lack of communication between the drivers, or there's price increases, and you never can fully trust the competitors. And so I would build my whole brand maybe on a theme, could be the trust and solid and security, and we have you covered. We're transporting your most precious cargo. Another name could be that we're going to get there no matter what. That when maybe it's weather, maybe you're in a bad spot with weather. So maybe there's more of this ranger attitude that you're willing to go further and farther. And then you have to fit your target demographic where they want to say the name. So once I have those themes in place, then I think of every single similar word in that same category. And I might go to ChatGPT or at the source and say words similar to whatever it is. And then I just create everything. And there's no bad name here. Just put everything on. And then from there, then I keep doing short lists of, okay, out of these names, what do we like best? And then we we go through that until we have these short lists. And then I like to see kind of a matrix of, all right, how would I use this in a sentence? So, hey, can you book me a drive on this app? Or, hey, I use whatever, or go on to whatever.com. And if the .coms aren't available, next point is what availability is there. So if the .com's not there, what about .co or .io? And there's good use cases for those. Maybe you really want the .com. So definitely .com is always the best, but maybe you're looking at get name or go name, something like that. There's a lot of options for extensions. And then same for social handles. You want them to be as similar as possible. So with every name, it's a lot of work to be able to get all of the pieces in place. But in short, is that if you don't love your name, if your clients don't love your name, it may be a good sign that you should change. How you brand or share your sales materials like brochures, docs, and website makes a huge impact for getting MRR, monthly recurring revenue. One thing we are trying to optimize for is, can it look and sound and solve like a world-class brand from day one? Not there yet, but tiny steps. So how do you do that? The best way is building a strong visual foundation, and that's through working with somebody who knows what they're doing, in short, but that's really the only answer there. So what I'm showing is Axio. It's that private jet company that we worked on. We answered a lot of questions. Here's a couple screenshots from their visual brand guidelines. And so we say, here's the logo up at the top left. There's the logo, the icon, how to use both, maybe the history or why the logo makes sense. Then we have different colors. We have placement, which is a huge thing. So if you are designing a business card or a brochure or some sort of marketing piece, do you put the logo front and center? Do you put it to the right? Where does it go? What about fonts? What fonts do I use for headlines versus body copy? What other patterns do I have? What iconography? Colors? Do I use all the time? Is it always black? Is it always white? Do I use this green? So we try to work through a lot of the different scenarios that you will be running into to make sure that there's an answer for it ahead of time. And so from day one, you should be able to have a strong visual foundation that feels and looks great. There's another side where more on the strategic side that we go into, where you can clearly articulate what makes you different and unique and why you are the better choice than your competitors. Which common design or UI issues do you see drive away customers the most? There's a book called Don't Make Me Think. This is what it's pulled from. But in short is when you're designing, especially when developers are designing, they try to put too much functionality in, or there isn't clear hierarchy. And so somebody's just struggling to do basic things. So that's probably the number one thing. And then again, they're trying to ask, well, what do I need to do on this page? And you don't want to have that. There's maybe too many colors without clear logic for why you have that. And again, back to the color conversation is you should have maybe just one color theme, but maybe there's other colors. Again, it takes so much intentionality once you get into the weeds of it. Page layouts change for pages. I've worked with companies that maybe all the settings pages were designed by different teams. And so they all have different layouts, which could be really confusing for the users. And then maybe if you do not have a design background, you're trying to do too much DIY, so do it yourself for basic elements like buttons or icons or colors or input fields. And you can tell really easily if something feels good or not. And so I cannot recommend enough just to use a basic UI kit or UI library when you're starting out if you do not have an experienced designer. And then trying to put everything in a box. So let's say for Airbnb, if you go to any Airbnb listing, click on any location, and then as you scroll through the page, they don't have things in sections and boxes. They use text to create that hierarchy. So there might be a title and then body copy underneath it, and then same. And so that makes it feel a little more high end. Same here, even look at this page. I don't have boxes around these sections. It's just text on the page. How does this landing page design change for a marketplace where there are benefits, where the benefits is all the goods for sale? For example, Etsy just has a bunch of products, but what if you're a few years behind Etsy? How do we adjust? If we have a two-sided marketplace, which is a related question, so I put them together. If we have a two-sided marketplace, would you recommend targeting the title towards the requesters or the service providers, or both? My guess is mainly be targeting the requesters. So marketplaces are challenging to design, but here's some best practices we found. So your homepage should be focused on the value you and the provider or host give to the end user. So for example, Airbnb, it's not targeted primarily towards the hosts. It's targeted for, if you answer the question, hey, what does your company do? You wouldn't say, hey, we help people list you might say this, but you probably wouldn't. We help people list their homes for other people. You might say, hey, we give people the opportunity to book in really great places, or something like that. You're putting the direction of the content on the end user here. And I've always found that to work best if you're on the fence. At early stages, it's best to describe what you do. Make it easy to point the guest or provider towards a page for them. So let's say if you do have a host link up at the top, make it really clear for them. At early stages, you can benefit from making a provider apply. So if you, again, on double-sided marketplace, it is challenging because if you don't have any supply, then there's nothing that you can offer to the end user. So what you want it to do is you want people to want to list you want people to want to be the host or whatever the equivalent is for you. So one way you can do that is having them apply for it as opposed to just signing up, and there's maybe more at stake. And there's also the dopamine rush of when you say, hey, congratulations, you were accepted, then people feel more grateful to be on your platform. The primary call to action on the whole site should be for the end user. So I wouldn't mix things on your homepage. Again, if you need to have that secondary host or equivalent provider page, you have a section maybe on your site that links over to that other page there. You should look at your providers as partners. So if you can give them other benefits or perks or extra support, or let's say if it's Airbnb, maybe have partner referrals for photographers that can come in where you have you have a deal for it, just to make their life as easy as possible so they want to refer other people because your platform was great. And then finally, it'd be a great idea to have amazing affiliate or referral perks for your providers so that they can help share the word more, because they're invested already by doing the work of putting their whatever location or their details on your site. And so you want them to want to tell other people in their space. Got a couple more for us. How do you record versions? How do you record versions of that for the demo page zoomed in on that one feature? So this, this was looking at a landing page that if you have, instead of maybe screen recording, it's kind of like what I'm doing. I'm screen recording a whole Keynote application presentation, kind of like a PowerPoint. How do you design something that is just a single element of your UI if you're a software company? How I would do that is take your actual product design, and you'd have to get a designer for this, is you have to take certain parts of it out, maybe put in faux information about the product, or if it's maybe don't use real customer information or don't use demo names, but make it look as real as possible, and then basically design a single part of it. And then in the future, I'll probably walk this one in a little more detail. And if I were to animate that, this is what I'm looking at here. So, and it could be a full video. So if it's a demo at the top of your page where you have to walk through your product, this is what I would look at. So about 30 to 60 seconds for the video. And you want to cover, first of all, here's the value that you're going to get by using this platform. This is how we're different. Here's how it works, really simple. And then here's how to sign up so that your video can live by itself, but it's just enough at the top in context of your whole site. And then a little extra, or a few extra tips, is possibly amplify the problem. So make it feel way worse and blow it up. It could be with more data, or you could not too much where it feels cheesy, but just to show that you know the problem as well as they do, if not better. And then show how simply your solution solves the problem, and then also make them feel good. Be by making them laugh, make the visuals good, all the above. What is the alternative for short clips instead of using GIF files? So this would be on your site or elsewhere. What we like to use is Lottie files. So instead of using a GIF file, which is a lot of different frames, so images that are all stacked together, that can be a very large file, and it's usually kind of blurry when you get it exported out, that it's this looping Kind of looks like a video, but it's really just a bunch of images that are told to keep rotating. We like using Lottie files. You can find people online through Upwork or Fiverr who can help you create these. And then the end result is code that you can put into your site, and then it's a looping file. Last is my addition to these questions is write down why you love what you do. And this is as a founder. There's a lot of hard days, a lot of eating glass, and it's painful at times. And so I found for me, when I go back, when I'm working on stuff I don't want to work on necessarily, just because you have to as an entrepreneur, is remember the why and the what you love most. And so for me, even in this, is I'm going through the effort of putting together content because I love seeing it when founders are more confident in their companies and in their brands, and they go back and build a better company with more intentionality for their team and for their customers to be able to offer better service. And it makes the world a better place for me and my family. So for you, it might be something drastically different. You may love getting to see how your customers interact, or maybe your team, or you just love the product that you're working on. And so my last thing here is I wish you the best and thank you for your time if you watched this far. And if you have any other questions that I didn't cover, I would always love to be able to help however I can. So with that, thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one.